Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode here of the Canberra Football Show. Joining me today is Russ Gibbs and Michael. Russ, how's it going? Another busy weekend for you, but thankfully no issues in terms of goalposts and all that sort of stuff.
No, all the issues were on the pitch this week, weren't they? There was plenty of red cards floating around and some sin bins and all that kind of thing as well. So nothing that we were used to. No postponements, fortunately. And we got a round of football in just before we have a week off, which is nice. So a few COVID issues, I think, floating around clubs too as well. So, of course, we're going to see that throughout the season, and we'll see some depleted sides because of that. But, you know, it's good to see some matches on the weekend and a whole round of games.
Certainly are. Michael, how's it going this weekend?
Yeah, doing good. I was just speaking to Russ off air, and I'd already talked to you about it, but we didn't end up having a game on the weekend, and my next one isn't until I think the 30th of April. So quite a sizable break in the season, which isn't ideal. But you know, there's not much you can really do. Lucky for me, there's all these other games going on. So in a fortnight's time, I think we have a bye in my comp, so I'm gonna try and go watch a NPLW match. I'm going to try and get out to Eagles because I desperately need to have a Eagle burger again. So it's been too long.
You told me you were on the bench in round one as well. So you're probably quite tired and you need this fortnight break, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. I need this time to really, you know, think about, you know, my performances and how I can get better. So I'm going to use this time wisely.
Recover and recuperate, my friend.
That's it.
We here at M&M Podcasts are very proud to talk to you about our very first sponsor called Linemarkit, a new local business emerging in the sport and technology arena.
That's right, Michael. Linemarkit is a new business operating the ACT and surrounding regions, and their product delivers accurate line markings for all sports and special functions using the latest technology.
That's right, Matt. And this includes all sports that we either take part in or have watched on TV at some point. And this ranges from football, rugby league, rugby union, hockey, Aussie rules, gridiron, baseball, softball, athletic tracks of any size and associated disciplines and more.
Yeah, look, that sounds like it covers a lot of ground, Michael. And playing right now are the images and videos of this machine at work. And by God, it's a beauty. If you're interested in these services or know someone that would be, do not hesitate to contact the business owner of this fantastic new initiative, Ken Yalg, through his email, linemarkit@tpg.com.au, or his work mobile, 0493 241 646. Contact details and social media pages will be available to access at our Facebook page, M&M Podcast. But if you are watching this on Facebook, it will be attached to the post.
That's absolutely right, Matt. And you know better than anyone else here at M&M Podcasts, we believe this business is fantastic for local Canberra sport and surrounding regions, whilst it couples its work with the finest new technologies.
Before we get cracking, let's Russ quickly want to mention a game he'll be calling with Steve Forshaw. Catch-up match from round one, Olympic versus Canberra, Croatia. Live on NPL TV, Ross.
It will be Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. So tune in if you've not got anything else to do. It's Canberra Olympic v Canberra Croatia from Deakin Stadium, though. So Deakin have opened the ground up for Canberra Olympic's use for a home game. And we all know how well Canberra Olympic like Deakin Stadium. So that one might make an interesting one. And as we'll talk about in a bit, some contrasting results on the weekend. But that should be a good match to take us into the Easter weekend.
Certainly should. Michael, what's our first matchup of the NPL round?
Yeah, so we had West Canberra Wanderers playing host to Belconnen United, and it was Belconnen United, the away team, that came away with a 2-1 win. West Canberra's goal scorer was Geno Surti in the 90th minute, and Belconnen United, Borgard got on the score sheet in the first couple of minutes before Max Green converted from the penalty spot. So obviously Belconnen United, they get their first win of the season, which I think was important for them in terms of, you know, bouncing back following their loss to Monaro in the opening round of the season at home. And, you know, I think the away side, they would have been a little disappointed to concede, considering how close they were to really completing that bounce back where you go through a loss, but you come back the next week and you get a win, but you also get a clean sheet as well. It just boosts a lot of sort of confidence and morale. So they'll be a little bit disappointed they weren't able to get a clean sheet in that one. But in terms of the actual goals, it was a bit of a mistake that gifted Belco the opener. But you take what you get in this league, and you create the opportunities no matter how they come up. And it was just a matter of, luck falling on Belconnen's side for that opening goal. But, they did well, Belconnen, to their credit, to sort of go beyond that after going ahead and creating further chances. And that's where we then saw Green convert, a confident penalty to make it 2-0 at the break. And it sort of seemed at that point that Belconnen were, well on their way to get the 3 points, albeit there was another 45 minutes of football still to play. There was a little bit more assertiveness, from West Canberra to come out in that second half. Obviously, they're chasing the game, but, obviously a positive will be that they were able to get themselves back in it, but it's just unfortunate that it came at such a late stage of the game where they didn't have enough time to really, complete the comeback and at least come away with a draw. So it just proved a little bit of a case of too little too late for West Canberra Wanderers, but overall a pretty good game of football. Russ, what was your thoughts on this result for Belconnen United? Important for them to get off the board for the year.
Yeah, after losing 3-0 home to Monaro in round one, it really was important for them to get something on the board. And as you mentioned, they had the perfect start. Phil Bourgeau's goal after 2 minutes. A bit of a howler from Jacob Wiseman. Whether he lost it in the flight or it moved a bit. It was a bit windy on the weekend. Shouldn't have been beaten there. And he knows that as well. And it's an uncharacteristic error from Jacob. And it gifted them the good start that Blue Devils wanted. After you've come off the back of a home loss, it's not ideal. You've got to get going again. And the second goal before halftime, Max Green's penalty, really put them in the driving seats. And it was a result that they deserved from then on in. The late goal from Jenna Cerruti was his first at this level in the Premier League. He's had a couple of run-outs for Tuggeranong pre-season, but last season rather, but that's his first goal in NPL. So too little too late, as you mentioned. Nice to see Max Green get on the scorecard. He's off this week to Spain to do his trial period with Rayo Vallecano. So we wish him the very best of luck.
Best of luck.
I'd hope we don't see him again, to be honest. Let's hope he gets a contract and he stays over there. And that'll be great for everybody in Canberra if he does do that. And not so great perhaps for Marcus Zukoski losing one of his main strikers, but we wish him all the best. For the Wanderers, I think it was a disappointing performance off the back of that cup match that they beat Canberra, Croatia a long time ago now. And I think that gap probably didn't help them in terms of momentum. If they could have got on the field last week, it may have been a different story. But yeah, difficult place to go. Melrose Synthetic can get 3 points, and Michael Zukoski's team will be really happy they've done so.
Next up, we have Canberra Croatia against Tigers FC. 1-1 draw, share of the spoils between the top two teams last season. Daniel Barrich with the goal for Canberra Croatia. Josh Golevsky with the goal through a penalty for Tigers FC. We mentioned their share of the spoils. Tigers are open their season with 2 straight draws, while Canberra Croatia collected their first points of the season after they didn't play in that first round. Nip Popovic thought he had given the Tigers the lead inside the first 10 minutes, but the ref judged there was a push on the defender in the back before taking the ball off him. Before, of course, he put it in the back of the net. Canberra Croatia then took the lead through a fantastic ball over the top, you have to say, from Jason Ugrinic. It was excellently finished off as well. Very calm and collected, wasn't it, from Daniel Barrich there? Probably the most cool, calm and collected sort of strike I've seen in terms of a volley anyway. Very well done there. Both sides, it looked to be going back and forth from what I saw. I was in and out of this one through a party as well I was at, so I was able to catch a decent. Yeah, I was in and out. Cousin 21st, he wouldn't have minded at all. So from what I saw, they did look back and forth. Thrilling finish as well in terms of a penalty from Josh Golevsky when he finished off his penalty. It didn't seem like there was too much between them, Russ. You were at the game, though, commentating, though. Feel free to correct me on that one if that is the case. But share of the spoils at Deakin.
Yeah, a good game to watch, actually. There was plenty of entertainment. I mean, perhaps it wasn't the most technically gifted game between these two sides that we've seen before, but it was super entertainment. The goal from Daniel Barrich, I think everybody expected him to take that ball down from Jason Ugrinich's through ball, but he just rolled it past the keeper nonchalantly with that volley. I thought it was going wide at one stage. It kind of trickled into the corner. Canberra versus Croatia were 1-0 up and comfortably 1-0 up. Chances were few and far between for both teams. Tigers had a few opportunities, but not too many after the Popovic disallowed goal, which actually I thought was kind of soft. I thought he probably could have been given that a goal, but the referees are closer than we are, and from our angle looked like perhaps it was shoulder to shoulder, but obviously the liner was right there and he decided it was pushing it back, and that's all that matters. The turning point of the game for me was at 1-0 when Matt Gerbischer got sent to the sin bin. They played with 10 minutes for 10 men, and I thought, well, this is going to be a chance for Tigers to hit back. But what actually happened was Croatia should have gone 2-0 up. Michael Piccolo did everything right. There was a cutback, and he struck it superbly along the ground, and to all intents and purposes, it looked like it was a goal. And Jacob Cole stuck out a big right foot and deflected it round for a corner. It was one of the best saves I've ever seen locally. It was from the penalty spot range and hit with venom. Keeper going the wrong way and having to go back on himself. It was a brilliant stop. If that goes in, Canberra Croatia win the football match. It didn't. And they cleared the corner. And then about 5 minutes later, they were given the penalty and Josh Gillespie confidently slammed it in. He's in great form, by the way. 3 goals, I think, this season already, if you count his Charity Shield efforts. But brilliant finish. And of course, there was another sin bin for Luke Pilkington a little bit later on. So Croatia played 20 minutes with 10 men in that game. It was important for the Tigers to come back and get a point. Like they did against Gungahlin United. I'm sure Ryan Grogan and Tuggeranong are pulling their hair out about having to come from behind. But 2 games in, they've not lost a match yet. These 2 teams were the top 2 last year. And like you said, honours even, nothing could separate them. And I think credit as well to Sam Brown, who made a really good save at the other end, if memory serves me right, from Tommy Kirklich at 1-1 to preserve a point for his team. So entertaining game to watch. Draw probably a fair result on the balance.
Okay, Michael, you were at this next matchup. It was a cracking result for a team making their return after 13 years to top flight Canberra football, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Matt. O'Connor Knights getting the win against Canberra Olympic. It was an astounding result for O'Connor Knights, 6-2 victory for them. Zygmunt got a double, Manda got a double, O'Rourke on the score sheet, and Michael Adams also. And for Canberra Olympic, Darwich and Steinacker with an own goal there as well. A very impressive home win to kickstart O'Connor's season and their introduction, like you said, Matt, back into the top division after 13 years. I thought, sort of watching the game for the first 10, 15 minutes, it just looked like both teams were trying to settle. And it just seemed a little bit cagey, like sort of both teams just trying to sort of get a foothold on the ball. And, I think when a team is, in O'Connor's case anyway, when you're playing your first match back in the first division, maybe there's just a bit of nerves and players just trying to settle down. But sort of after that first 10, 15 minute period, O'Connor started to have more success as the match went on. And particularly in the second half, I thought they were really good in the second half. And that's what really set them aside from Canberra Olympic. And it's just the sort of result that coach Alex Trinich would have been hoping for to start their 2022 season. I mean, you can't ask for a better result at home to start your 2022 campaign back in the top flight. And I thought it's also key to mention, I was talking to Matt about this off air, and I believe he was talking to Alex as well. But, two corners from two goals, built up from short corners, which is something you don't really see all that often, but it just shows, a bit of quality. You don't have to always swing the ball into the box. You can sometimes work around it, and that's what they managed to do. So, and the scorers for those goals as well were, all the scorers, were all NPL2 players last year for O'Connor on the scoreboard on Saturday with the 6 goals. So I think they showed, really good aspects in attack, particularly their link-up play, which was on display quite a bit in that match. And, it really showed how well those young players worked together. And I think that's just a representation of obviously the experience that they've had last season, getting promoted and having a good season in what was called NPL2 last season. And now where they've managed to have a good preseason, and they've obviously had a lot of confidence coming into this new NPL season. So kudos to them. And I thought it was also important to highlight the performance of Michael Adams. We know how good Michael Adams is. He managed to obviously get on the score sheet, like I mentioned, but he also provided 4 assists as well. So he had a hand in 5 of the 6 goals to really show how important he was and how great of a signing he's already proved to be. I think on the flip side of this, I think Olympic, they'll obviously be disappointed with the result to concede 6. It's not great for any team to concede that amount of goals, but they were right. They were right in the match, especially when the scores were, when the score was when it was 2-2, and they managed to peg back twice. But I think it did certainly highlight that they did have moments in the game, and I definitely saw that they just couldn't really piece it together in the final third as they would have hoped. They had a lot of times where they would find themselves in decent areas, but maybe a pass would go astray, or someone would overrun the ball, and before you know it, O'Connor were then able to take the ball and quickly sort of push forward with the amount of space that was being sort of left by Olympic. So, Russ, what did you think of the result?
Yeah, beyond the wildest
performance in
dreams.
this game?
Beyond the wildest dreams, I think of O'Connor Knights. They would have wanted to get their season off and running last week, and there was certainly 13 years of pent-up frustration shown on that field. 6 goals to 2. A fantastic performance by the Knights. You mentioned Michael Adams, absolutely brilliant. He could even afford to miss a penalty. It was a great save from Sebastian Yoogali in the Olympic goal. It was a stunning stop. Didn't make any difference whatsoever. I think the key to this one was Patrick O'Rourke's goal at 3-2. You mentioned that they got back on terms at 1 apiece. They did go 3-1 down before the own goal to Noah Steinacker to make it 3-2.
Oh, yeah.
But that Paddy O'Rourke goal, almost within 5 or 6 minutes of that own goal, to restore that 2-goal cushion was the actual killer blow for Canberra Olympic. And as they were looking for the game against this O'Connor Knights side, they got picked off. Martin Zygmunt wanted me to mention that he's joint top goal scorer in the Premier League. He's got 2 goals. For Keddy Mander's got 2 with Josh Galevsky as well. So we'll give him his moments. He's asking me today if he could get a printout of the leading scorers. Didn't want to put him in his place, but with his surname starting with Z, he'd be bottom of those 3. So lucky Martin. Even though you've got 2, we'll push you to the top just for this once. But you've got the veteran at the back there. You've got some other experienced players like Adams in the middle. You've got really young talent that are running around outside them. They've got pace, they've got physicality, and you can see they're well coached. Miro and Alex have had them together now for quite some time. They've got a big, deep squad. And it's a great start to the season for them. They're not going to get carried away, and nobody else will either, I don't think. Their next test is Tigers FC, if I'm not mistaken, and that'll be a really good test of their credentials. But at the moment, they can sit pretty. They've got 3 points on the board and a big win at home. And I popped in as well with my father before he goes back to the UK. We nipped down to O'Connor to have a look, and great setup they've got down there. Plenty of home fans too, and it was nice to see. For Canberra Olympic, I think Robbie Katnach and Mitz will admit that he probably picked the wrong 11 to cope with what the O'Connor Knights had to offer. He was hamstrung, missing up to half a dozen first choice players for him in that group that he would probably select from. But don't detract anything away from the O'Connor Knights. They thoroughly deserved their win and scored some wonderful goals. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them in action this season, because I think they play with that kind of silk and steel that we like to see and that can get you results.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, we have Gungahlin United against Monaro Panthers. Josh Gaspari and Jeremy Haptamarian with the goals for Gungahlin, and Emilio Kishta with the goal for Monaro Panthers. Very good win for Gungahlin overall. This win puts them at the top of the table, 1 point clear of Monaro, O'Connor, and Belconnen. Missing for this matchup from Gungahlin United was Brindabella Madrid and Leon Mickle, both their goal scorers from the previous week. First and foremost, I was calling this game. First and foremost, I want to apologize. Mishko Nomoshki was not the first scorer, like I said on commentary.
It was
Gaspari. It was a cracking free kick, wasn't it? He accidentally called Mishko for that one, not Gaspari, so my bad. They started the matchup on the front foot, you have to say, in terms of Gungahlin. They were eyeing Monaro's defense with balls over the top. Quite a few. Paul Townsend and I on commentary were going to say, I don't think we've seen so many, balls over the top in the first 15 minutes than we saw in that game. But it really worked for Gungahlin. They were really pressuring Monaro like that. And Robbie Tachenko, I just want to specifically say, I thought was outstanding in that opening half. We don't really talk about him too much on the show, but he was really a standout down that left flank. And he was the one that sort of had Gungahlin's best chance, I would say, in that opening first half, where he flipped in a ball for a header, and it forced a really good save there from Jordan Thurtell. I have to say there was quite a few good saves from Jordan Thurtell in this one. In terms of the second half, Gungahlin were, like we mentioned, through that Gaspari free kick. They got on the score sheet. Monaro probably started just a little bit quicker in that first half, but once Gungahlin started, it was mostly them, from what I can recall. Monaro did have their chances, though, and Jack Green was immense at the back, like he always is. Butter Bass as well. Nick Dahl fills in that fullback position as well. In terms of Monaro, they did have Andre Carl with a late unavailability on the day or the night before, I believe. And you could tell in the way they sort of set up. They played with the false nine with Kishta, and they didn't have an out-and-out striker. And you could tell that they didn't practice that in midweek because they weren't expecting this to happen as well. But they did have their chances. They had the build-up play there, but they just weren't able to put the goals that they would have liked in the back of the net. In terms of Monaro's defense, though, we mentioned they were targeted for those long balls and they weren't able to deal with it for the first 20 or so minutes. But after about 20 minutes, Calabria and De Franceschi figured out a way to sort of stop that, and then it forced Gungahlin to go through the wings. Like we mentioned, Thurtell was immense on the day. Calabria had another immense performance. Kishta with that goal. What a goal. Another one that caught us off guard. It just came out of nowhere. And then he had the C celebration at the end as well. But in terms of Selden and Carl, they're two massive players to have out. But in saying that, though, credit to Gungahlin. They deserve the win on the day. Russ, what were your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, players are missing, obviously, the big ones you talked about, Bernardo, Madrid, Raftin as well, as long as Liam Mickle. Raftin's back in the country now after his Futsal's exploits, and congratulations to him on making his international debut and scoring a goal in that competition overseas in Bangkok. And of course, for the Panthers, you mentioned Carl wasn't there, Selden wasn't there, Wilson wasn't there, and Woods wasn't available either. They were a bit depleted as well, but both sides then shorn of perhaps some of their key players. The tactic that Gungahlin play, we've seen it a lot where they knock the ball around short and then they play that long diagonal over the top looking for the pace of John on one side or Mishka Namoski on the other. And if it's played correctly and well, which Jack Green inevitably does, it's very hard to defend against. Look, I spoke to both Frank Keisha and Marcel Munoz after the game because I didn't catch the first half because I was on Young Matilda's duty at Viking Park. But both of them said that Monaro had the better of the first half and perhaps could have had more goals. Could have had a goal or two to their credit, but Garland really came to the fore in the second half. And you mentioned Josh Gaspari's free kick, and he's a great signing for Gungahlin United. If he's around to the end of the season, it completely changes the dynamic of their side. He's got a good engine, he can range of passing, and he can strike a ball. Kishta's equaliser was stunning, as we've come to expect from him. And Jeremy Habtemarian's penalty, I don't think there was too many arguments about whether it should have been a spot kick. I mean, maybe those in green and black didn't think so, but I think most of the neutrals would have said, yeah, it was a penalty. And of course, the red cards didn't help.
Yep, I forgot to mention that. We had three.
Yeah, Emilia Kishta sent off for a second yellow, Josh Calabria sent off for a second yellow, and then in stoppage time, Butter Bass sent off for a second yellow. After Kishta had equalised at 1-1, you thought the game might be in the balance despite Gungahlin having much the better of the second half because they've got that threat on the break that they can hurt you. Once Kishta got sent off, it obviously allowed Gungahlin to dictate the tempo. And once they'd scored the goal, I think there was no doubt about it that they were going to win the game. And you'd think on the balance of that, they probably deserve the 3 points this week. Would have pleased Marcel Munoz, I think. They would have been really disappointed, as we mentioned last week, losing a 2-goal lead against Tigers FC. They should have won that game, but they didn't. But they've got 4 points and they're top of the pile from 2 games. And I think what we've seen from these first 2 rounds is that there's plenty of teams that can beat each other.
Yeah.
And this isn't going to be a season where a team walks away with this and starts building up a big lead. I think everybody can beat each other. There's going to be some tight matches. You start throwing O'Connor Knights into the mix now, who look like they're well equipped to take points off everybody. And it's going to be a really, really exciting season.
It certainly will be. And Michael, let's get into the fixtures. This is getting harder and harder. I've literally changed my mind when I had several times over while you were talking, and I was waiting to do my bit. So let's get straight into it. In saying that, though, let's quickly just go over what happened last week. So we had in NPL, we had me with 2, you with 1. NPLW, we fared a little better. You with 4, me with 3, Jeremy with 2, and then the same results for MPL2/CPL. Me with 2, you with 1.
Is that a clean sweep for Michael in WMPL?
It is
4 from 4.
Yeah.
That's all right. That fills me with a little bit of joy because certainly didn't go well for the other competitions.
Yeah, we won't mention the other ones, mate.
Yeah.
I'll get like a reverse clap.
I still got half.
Yeah.
Too bad. You though won. So it was a bit of a mixed pile for both of us there. So adds to the bit of fun we're going to have. So do you want to kick us off with NPL round 3 fixtures? Yeah, that'll happen in a fortnight's time after Easter.
Yep. So first up, we have Belconnen United up against Gungahlin United Saturday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. at McKellar Park. This is a very tough one. I'm sort of contemplating back and forth on what. I'm going to go for Gungahlin United in this one. It's super tight for me to pick a winner, but I do think sort of on the back of that victory for Gungahlin United against Monaro, I think that'll do them a world of good. And, but on this, at the same time, Belconnen United obviously getting an important victory as well to kickstart their campaign. So, I mean, both sides obviously coming into this one with a victory. I'm still going to, stick with Gungahlin United, maybe just sneaking away with one here.
Yeah, look, this is going to be a tough one. I mean, Gungahlin obviously played very well in the last 2 games and ended up getting a draw and a win. But Belco bounced back last week. Let's not forget Belco did get the better of Gungahlin United deservedly as well in that Australia Cup tie. They're going to be chomping at the bit. Also, no Max Green, though, in that one. This is going to be a tough one. I'm going to change my mind again. I'm going to go with the Gungahlin victory, but this could go anyway. I've literally changed about 3 times for this one. What do you think about this matchup, Russ, in terms of what you're expecting from the tie? And what match are you going to be calling as well this fortnight? Because all the matches are on a Saturday.
Yeah, I've got 2 games on the weekend. I've got Belconnen versus Gungahlin at 3 o'clock at McKellar. And then we will be hot-tailing it over to the Riverside where all their Saturday evening games now for us are going to be put back to 5:45. So if there's a 2 game on a Saturday, we can get across and get there in time for kickoff for Monaro, Croatia. But this game that you're talking about, Belconnen and Gungahlin, I think it's going to be either a Belconnen win, a Gungahlin win, or a draw. I think you guys are agonizing over it quite correctly because it's going to be a tough one to call. Gungahlin's form's pretty good. Belconnen have got themselves a top side as well this season, and it really could go either way. That's why we're going to commentate on this one because I think it's going to be a great matchup, and it should be 2 teams that will go toe-to-toe. We were there for the Australia Cup game. That could have gone either way as well, and it's a really exciting encounter. Yeah,
next up, we've got Canberra Olympic up against West Canberra Wanderers, Saturday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. Again, I'm having real difficulty picking a side here. I mean, on one hand, you've got, Canberra Olympic who will be very eager, in fact, to obviously right that wrong in terms of the result that they endured against O'Connor Knights. And then you've got West Canberra who had a narrow defeat against Belconnen. I'm going to go for Olympic. God, that was long.
Flip a coin, my friend, because it's exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah. This will be fun to look back on. I'm going to go for a draw with this one here. Both teams looking to get their first points of the season, and I think they might equalize each other out in doing so. So I'm going to go with a draw for this one, and of course, I changed my mind just before it. Russ, what are you expecting from in this matchup? Like we mentioned, both teams looking for their first points. In saying that, though, Olympic are playing midweek coming up, though.
Yeah.
So that could be different. Who knows?
That's
Yeah,
true.
look, I mean, it's going to be an important game for both sides, isn't it? I mean, it's important to get your first 3 points
Yeah.
on the board. We saw that last year with Tuggeranong United. The longer it went on, the harder it
Yeah.
became for them. Olympic, both these sides last year actually had really good starts, didn't they? And
Yeah.
they were 15 points up before we could even blink at the right end of the table. And in the end, that was enough for them to stay up, despite having a bad run of form. Now, I mentioned 5 minutes ago that anyone could beat anyone in this league. And they'll be looking at all these other fixtures going, well, we can get points. But for all of them, for both these sides, it's vitally important to start winning. And it's a game on the weekend that both coaches will be targeting. They'll think that they can win. West Canberra Wanderers will look at Olympics' recent result. And let's say they do lose to Deakin, to Croatia at Deakin on Thursday. They'll have lost the first 2 games. And West Canberra will be going, well, there's a chance for us to put some daylight between us and them with the result. But away at O'Connor, on the grass as well, it's perhaps not quite suited to their style as it is the Melrose synthetic. So yeah, we're looking forward to this one as well. Anything could happen, and I think either of you could be right in your predictions here. But I wouldn't put it past the Wanderers to come away with 3 points as well. It's going to be a good one.
No, I wouldn't either.
This is actually a very, like, just having a look at these fixtures, like they're very, very, very tough games to pick. So next up, we've got Tigers FC up against O'Connor Knights, Saturday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. at AOS Grassfield 2. Oh, man. I feel as though I've opened, every prediction
with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be like this.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just so, it's very tough to pick. I'm actually going to go for a Tigers win. I think that they've had the 2 draws now to start the season, and we obviously know the quality that they have. And I just think that this could be the game where they really sort of get their season going in terms of getting that first win on the board against O'Connor, who, although had that really good victory against Canberra Olympic, we'll get to really see what they're made of against an opposition like Tigers. So it's going to be tough. It could literally go either way. I just want to sort of claim that before this may go wrong. But I'm going to go for Tigers FC in this one. It's going to be tough, though.
Yeah, look, I think the week off probably helps Tigers as well. They're going to be chomping at the bit to get their first win of the season, and they have another week to sort of rectify that in terms of their preparation. There's no reason to say O'Connor Knights can't get the win here. I'm going to go for Tigers victory overall, and I think if this was played next week, I probably would have picked either a draw or O'Connor Knights win based on that momentum. And I think a week off as well, sort of not cancels, but sort of doesn't have the momentum as high in that regard. But I wouldn't be surprised if O'Connor Knights can come away with a win here either. They're that much quality. And since I didn't comment on that O'Connor Knights win, just the way they played as well, a lot of the goals they get, the build-up play was tremendous. And I'm a big fan of 2 of the goals that were from short corners as well. Like you mentioned, I can't remember the last time I saw that. But I'm going to go with a narrow Tigers FC victory here. Like we mentioned, it could go any way. Russ, what are you looking for in terms of this matchup? Like we mentioned, Tigers will be chomping at the bit to get their first 3 points.
I think if we sat here 12 months ago and we were talking about Tigers versus Knights in Australia Cup game, and you suggested that the Knights could live with the Tigers, we'd all have laughed at you and gone, there's no way. Tigers have far too much quality in that lineup. A year's a long time in football, isn't it? And a week's a long time as well. And I think the momentum that the Knights built, they would have liked to get this game, as you said, next weekend against a Tiger side that confidence perhaps isn't quite as high as it should be. Look, I think the Knights have got enough quality in that ranks. And you talked about the way they've been coached and the way they play football. And you've got to remember that they're 6-2 win on the weekend. And we're missing Danny Roberts, Liam Walsh, Nico Kresic, Andrew Slavic, Eddie Coggan. That's 5 players off the top of my head that they didn't have. Regan Walsh is another one, 6 players that they didn't have in that squad. And those, when you look at that team, that's 6 experienced Premier League players. So you think, well, they can bring some more quality to that outfit. So they've definitely got the firepower and the quality to hurt the Tigers. Now, the Tigers that we all know all about, the Tigers, they've got some great striking ability. They've got super attacking ability. Interesting to see Rocco Stricker deployed in central defence the last 2 weeks. While he's really calm and confident there and he's strong and he plays the ball around, I do think they miss his attacking quality as he goes forward. So, yeah, this one's going to be a cracker. And I mentioned in the O'Connor Knights review slightly earlier that this is a good test of their credentials at this level to see whether they can not only live with the Tigers, but perhaps I would hesitate to even call it an upset, because I think if the Knights win, it will be a thoroughly deserved victory. Again, if you're at the AIS on the weekend or you tune into NPL TV, this is a good one to watch as well. Really hard to pick our games this week. It's to which ones we're going to broadcast and commentate on, and also, as you guys are finding it, to predict the results.
Absolutely. Last up, we've got yet another mouth-watering fixture and another tough one to call. It's Monaro Panthers up against Canberra, Croatia, Saturday, April 23rd at Riverside Stadium at, you said 5:45, Russ, correct?
Yeah, they moved the kickoff 15 minutes for us, which is rather nice. And we arranged it with the teams and the coaching staff and the referees. Just gives that extra bit of time for us to nip down the highway.
Beautiful. I'm going to say a Monaro Panthers victory here, but it's also important to consider the fact that Canberra, Croatia are obviously going to play a match before then as well. So, I mean, like, my thoughts and feelings could sort of change on that based on their result when they play against Canberra Olympic in that rescheduled match. But I expect Panthers to come back. They'll have those sort of key personnel that they had missing in that Gungahlin match come back as well. And I think if they're able to produce the quality that they did against Belconnen United, then I think they can come away with a victory here in front of their home fans at Riverside.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to call this one down the middle and say it's a draw, because these two teams, especially when they play each other, I can't remember the last blowout score in terms of the last 2 years between these two teams. And even when a certain side's played better than each other in a certain match, it's always been close. It has always been close, especially these matches at the Riverside as well. So I'm just going to call it down the middle, say it's a draw, and save myself the hassle for this week in that regard. Russ, you'll be calling this one. It's always a cracker, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been prepping my commentary notes for this one, and just so you guys can feel very pleased about your predictions, in the 10 matches that they've played away to Monaro Panthers in the NPL era, Monaro Panthers have beaten Canberra, Croatia absolutely none times. So it's been 10 wins to Canberra, Croatia to 0 from Monaro Panthers, which incredibly, when you consider the results they've had in the last few years, you said they haven't been close. They have been close. They haven't been any
the last two. They've been very close.
Yeah, they've been very close. All three last two. Close. Obviously, the Panthers did defeat them on penalties in the Cup there last season as well. But yeah, they haven't won an NPL home game against Canberra, Croatia in their history, which is quite surprising, to be honest. Saying that, this is again a very different Monaro Panther side to what we've seen in the past. Generally, there's lies, and statistics, I think they say, or something like that. And Canberra, Croatia are a good outfit away from home. Monaro Panthers are a good outfit as well. What we will see is two sides playing some attractive football. Dini Greenwich and Frank Keisha like their sides to play good attacking football. Wouldn't be surprised if they cancel each other out. I think the loss of Emilio Kishta and Josh Calabria is a big blow. They'll both be suspended, of course, for this one. And it's going to be a good match. Looking forward to calling that one. Steve Forshall will join me fresh off the back of Tigers under 23s against the Knights. He's going to make the trip down half time in that game from first grade. And he'll come and join us for that one as well. So it should be a good one.
It certainly should. That's us for this week. Russ, thank you for joining me and us. And do you have any last words before you head off? Yeah,
just remember that on the back of those games on the 23rd of April as well, there's been 3 matches confirmed for the quarterfinals of the Australia Cup. Wednesday, the 27th of April, the Panthers will play ANU and Tuggeranong will play West Canberra Wanderers. I think that's almost confirmed. And then on the following Wednesday, the 4th of May, O'Connor versus Queanbeyan City. And we're still waiting for Belco and Olympic to confirm theirs as well. But yeah, thanks very much for having us on again. Thanks for filling in for me on the weekend while I was calling the International at Viking Park. And let's hope we get another round of high quality, close football matches in a fortnight's time. And once we've all had a break this weekend.
And now to our NPLW section of the podcast, we have first up Belconnen United 5-1 over Gungahlin United. Another 5-1 victory like they did last week. Olivia Bomford with 2 goals in the 51st and 69th minute. Kira Bobbin with 2 goals in the 61st and 84th minute. And then Matsis ends up on the score sheet as well in stoppage time in the 92nd minute. For Gungahlin United, Erica Pennyfield scored their goal in the 44th minute. Belconnen United, like we said, made it 2 wins from 2 to start the season with a pretty convincing win overall against Gungahlin United. And we mentioned how not a lot of people have been talking about Belco. Well, they've come out with 2 Very impressive wins to start, and it's probably the best way for them to head into that Olympic match where Olympic are stacked this season with a whole bunch of players and a lot of former Belco players as well. They'll be raring to go for that one. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We mentioned the prowess and attack, Bomford and Bobbin, both with braces, and Kira Bobbin. This is her 5th goal of the season, which means she is now tied joint top scorer because Krista Hagen scored 5 goals against Wagga City Wanderers. So those two are joint top scorers. So Bobbin is having one hell of a season so far in these early days. Overall, Gungahlin United, though, this is their first league match after last week. They didn't play against West Canberra Wanderers due to a ground issue, I believe. So they'll be disappointed with the way they started. But, you know, they did have the lead in the first half, just before the end of the half. So I guess you couldn't really ask for much, could you, in terms of Gungahlin having that momentum heading in, scoring just before. But Belco were able to overcome it quite quickly. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what's happening going forward. Talk about how Belco are very, you know, they're looking very strong despite more changes than they've ever had. Gungahlin United, we all know they've still got the quality. It might just take a bit of time for them to click together, because we have mentioned how they were the team that had a lot of continuity. So that's why they did pretty well over the last couple of seasons. But now they still have a decent amount of players that have played together, but at the end of the day, they have lost some key players as well. And with the new coach also, it seems like they just need a bit of time to get going. So we'll see how they go against CUA this weekend. Overall, though, very, very good win from Belconnen United. Scotty Conlon has them going pretty well heading into the next round. Like I said, big matchup for them against Olympic.
Yeah, big game. Yeah. That's going to be a good one, isn't it?
Certainly. Do you have any thoughts before we move on?
Well, I think, you know, like you sort of mentioned at the top, it's consecutive 5-1 wins now for Belconnen United. They've looked pretty good, even though they've gone through, you know, a bit of change as well in terms of, you know, players that have left the club and a new coach and whatnot. But already in this early part of the season, and like you mentioned, you know, they're already showing that they've got a real prowess in attack. You know, they've got the personalities sort of going forward that make them that have always made them a dangerous outfit. And I think it's exactly the kind of form that they were hoping to be in heading into that Canberra Olympic game, because it's going to be an absolute cracker, that match. Given obviously the squad overhaul that Canberra Olympic has sort of underwent and how good they're looking as well. So it's going to set up for an enthralling game, most definitely.
It certainly will. And good to see a new scorer as well, Max, on the score sheet there also. Who do we have next up?
Next up, we've got West Canberra Wanderers, who got a victory over the Canberra United Academy, 1-0. So a clean sheet for West Canberra. So that's an added bonus when you get the 3 points as well. It's always nice to keep a clean sheet. And obviously, we touched on it last week, but I think overall it's a much better effort from the CUA in this match compared to last week when they lost 8-1 to Canberra, Croatia. But, you know, when we're looking back towards the home side, which was West Canberra Wanderers in this case, Ray Castro's, you know, he'll be very happy with that win and that performance. And like I said, to get the clean sheet as well, and it's their first sort of 3 points of the season as well. So it really kickstarts their campaign. You know, it was, they managed to open the scoring at a really crucial time in the game, you know, just before half time. You know, CUA definitely had their chances throughout the game from set piece opportunities. They had actually quite a few corners. So I think that really showed that they were able to build the ball up like they normally do from the back and play it through the pitch. And it was a matter of, getting in the final third and then winning those set piece sort of opportunities, but they just couldn't capitalize on that. And, you know, whether that's just those girls not being physically big enough to sort of compete in the air and what have you, it still shows that they were able to, you know, present some problems, which I'm sure is a positive compared to what they were able to muster up last week. So I think the CUA can look at it from a positive perspective in that instance. And, you know, I felt like this was the sort of result that West Canberra needed, Matt, after the loss that they suffered to Canberra, Croatia in the Charity Shield. It's exactly what they needed in terms of just getting their, you know, foot in the door for the season and getting a 3 points and sort of just putting that game behind them. But I think for CUA, it'll just be important for them not to get too discouraged from this result. I think there's a big leap from what they endured last week to this week, given, they did play Canberra, Croatia, which is one of the better teams in the competition. And that's just no disrespect to West Canberra Wanderers, but, there were positives for them to take out of that game. And like I said, it might just take a little bit of time for those girls to gel together. And this is another team that has gone through a coaching change as well. So it's all about sort of just shifting, culture and adapting to a new style of play. But, all in all, West Canberra Wanderers will take that. It kicks off their season. And I know Ray Castro will be pleased to get a clean sheet. Maybe he would have obviously liked a few more goals. We all like goals, don't we? But 3 points is what matters at the end of the day.
Next up, 6-0 Canberra Olympic over Tuggeranong United. Anna Vandenbroek, 2 goals. Michaela Thornton, Nicole Joloka, Ashley Sykes, and Lara Mustaine own goal are the goals for Canberra Olympic. 6-0 win over Tuggeranong United. Now, Olympic continue to show why they are one of the teams that everyone's talking about. They came out with an emphatic victory against Tuggeranong United. Only scored 2 in the first half, though. We'll talk about how Tuggeranong, we can tell that they're improving this year. In terms of Olympic, though, just firepower, they just keep going and going and going. And like we've said before, it helps that you've got someone like Michaela Thornton in there who really just leads the line and keeps putting up that pressure for Olympic. But like we mentioned, Nicole Joloka, she's going to be scoring quite a few, I think, for them this season. Anna Vandenbroek, you're seeing a lot of variety of goal scorers, which for Olympic. So it just proves how much firepower they have. Then, of course, Ashley Sykes as well in the second half coming on there and making a difference. She had a fantastic season with Canberra United. Even though Canberra United overall were here and there, you can't say Ashley Sykes didn't have a great season. She was pulling out some good goals for Canberra United overall. In terms of Tuggeranong, though, another valiant effort. It was only 2-0 in the first half. And what I noticed from the game is and when we're talking about Tuggeranong improving, we're not just talking about them, like, for example, conceding less. We're talking about stuff like last minute instinct defending, like last minute, challenges or just instincts where they can, just reach out, or they just think, you can tell they think differently on the field when they're defending. If someone passes them, everyone's thinking as a team. In terms of just some of the passages of play as well, leading up to some of their chances, I thought they've done pretty well there. You can see a lot of positives from that performance from Tuggeranong United, and we've mentioned how the start of the draw isn't pleasant to them either, but they're going to be looking at these positive passages of play, and some of their defending as well I thought was pretty good. I know it seems to be weird to say considering they conceded 6, but you can just see how much they've all improved in that department. So there will be positives there for Tuggeranong, but overall, very, very good win for Canberra Olympic. Once again, puts them in perfect position with another clean sheet as well, heading into that massive matchup against Belco, which is going to be hard to call, but we'll get into that later. Who do we have next up, Michael?
Yeah, so next up we have Canberra, Croatia, who astoundingly won 16-0 against Wagga City Wanderers. Matt, we had Mia Georgie score a hat-trick, Jen Brissett notch a hat-trick, Sienna Burney on the score sheet, and Krista Hagen scored 5. And Barak scored 3 as well, before Jamie Berkeley also got on the score sheet too. So I believe that means that Zoran Glavinich's team had, I think, 4 different people with 3 goals or more, if I'm not mistaken there, Matt, which will put a smile on his face for sure. I think that just sort of highlights the amount of talent that he has at his disposal. And we all know how hard it is for one player to get a hat-trick. So, I mean, to have 4 players end up with 3 goals or more is quite a feat and something that they should be proud of, most definitely. And like you mentioned at the top, when talking about Belconnen United, Krista Hagen is obviously joint top goal scorer after her 5 goals in just this single match, which puts her level at the top of the standings as well for the race for the Golden Boot. So I think with this result, I think Canberra, Croatia, they sort of just continue that continue to send out that message to the rest of the competition that, they have every intention to regain their league title this season. And I think you can't get more emphatic of a message than what they put across on the pitch on the weekend. And I think it is key and important to note that Wagga City had both of their keepers injured, and they obviously weren't able to play in this match. And we all know how difficult it is to come up against one of the best sides in the competition, or not even one of the best sides in the competition, but against any opposition, and to know that you don't have any of your goalkeepers available mean that it's going to be very difficult for you. So I think we have to commend Wagga City for putting forward that effort in trying to field, a team given the limited supplies that they had in that goalkeeping space. I think and when we're talking about absences on the Canberra Croatia side of things, Britt Palombi wasn't available, and Rebecca Kidding also didn't play for Canberra Croatia. Matt, we spoke about the importance of goal difference in NPLW last year when it was, between Canberra Croatia and Belconnen United, because of how close they were points wise. And it was sort of like a 2-horse race between those teams this season. And I remember that we always used to talk about that goal difference is key in this competition. And, when you have a result like this, it certainly helps and aids Canberra Croatia's cause to, regain the title, and particularly if they're going to be up against Belconnen, come the season end. We expect these two to be neck and neck going for the league title. And we talked about how goal difference will play a massive factor when there's an aspect of maybe the teams being on the same points, and then you've obviously got to look at the goal difference. But I think we're also going to be seeing that Canberra Olympic are going to come into that equation as well. So it'll all depend if they can obviously stay consistent. I'm talking about Olympic here. If they stay consistent and pose as a title threat, because obviously last season they weren't a threat necessarily to the title, but that changes a little bit this season because we know how much better they've gotten. But I think for Canberra Croatia, it's important that they get the goal difference up, because like I said, they tend to be back and forth with Belconnen. Maybe Olympic will be in that conversation as well. So a good win for Canberra Croatia. And hopefully we can see Wagga City sort of bounce back when they get their goalkeepers back and other personnel as well, because we know how difficult it can be from them to travel to Canberra. And when you've already got a limit on your playing squad, it makes it even harder to sort of put an effort on the pitch that is going to get you a result from the game. So hopefully moving forward, we can see Wagga City Wanderers in a more sort of positive light. And I'm sure they will. They have a great coach, and they'll be back.
Look, and we all know how difficult it is, to travel and all that. And especially considering this was one of the teams that had some of the most injuries in terms of the women's game last year. Now they specifically got more keepers for this season. Now they're both injured already. It's just, it's a lot of bad luck for Wagga. So if you're a female keeper and you're interested in playing, reach out to Sam and the group there. They do accept players from Canberra. I believe they have, and they allow them to train in Canberra as well. So I'm assuming it'll only be home games. Reach out to Wagga. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear from female keepers at the moment. In terms of Canberra Croatia, you mentioned the goal difference. 4 goals now is the difference between Canberra Croatia. They have 23 goal difference, and Canberra Olympic 19.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. In terms of I think what's important is the clean sheet, because the reason why I'm saying this is because I was watching the interview last week that Russ did with Zoran Glavinic, and he said he wasn't happy that they conceded a goal. So he's a tough coach to please sometimes, Zoran Glavinic, and he wants to keep those clean sheets going. So I'm sure he'll be happy with the clean sheets there. I just wanted to read, in terms of Wagga, I just wanted to read an excerpt from Jeremy's part of the NPLW review on the Capital Football website. The team from the Riverina have faced arguably the two best squads in the competition to start their season, and will have a couple of weeks to learn from the heavy defeats. Despite the result, though, the performance of their captain, Bella Palmero, as well as left back Marwa Suleiman and goalkeeper Ebony Warner is to be commended. Sam Gray and his troops have some work to do, but these are good foundations to build on, before traveling back to the capital after the Easter break. I just wanted to mention that there, just in terms of performances that Jeremy, who commentated the game specifically, were impressed with in terms of that young squad that they have at Wagga. All right, Michael, let's get straight into our tips for next week. Tuggeranong United against Canberra, Croatia, Friday, April 22nd, 7:45 prime time at Greenway Enclosed. We've mentioned how tough a draw this is for Tuggeranong United. I'm expecting a Canberra Croatia victory, but expect to see those improvements and glimpses from Tuggeranong United. Then they'll use all three of them to push forward to next season. To next week.
Yes.
After 2 weeks time, another week after that, because we've got Easter next week. So yeah. I'm going to go with Croatia on this one. How about you, Michael? And Jeremy is going with Croatia on this one also.
Yeah, I'm going with Canberra, Croatia as well. And I think it is important to note the difficult fixture list that Tuggeranong United have had to start this season with. But at the same time, it can be a bit of a blessing in disguise in terms of just getting those more difficult games out of the way and sort of picking up some valuable sort of experiences from those contests and using those in the games going forward, where there'll be more presentable opportunities for them to actually take points. So it's going to be a great learning curve for Tuggeranong United, I feel, but I think that Canberra, Croatia will have too much. But it'll be very interesting to see what sort of effort Tuggeranong United are able to muster up on the back of that game against Olympic.
Next up, we have West Canberra Wanderers against Wagga City Wanderers, the Battle of the Wanderers, Sunday, April 24th, 12:45 p.m. at Melrose Synthetic. Like we mentioned, I'm not sure what the keeper situation will be by then, but hopefully they will have been able to find someone with the extra week off. But in saying that, though, West Canberra look pretty good. I'm going to go with them in this one, but I'm sure Wagga will be ready to go and well rested for that one. How about you, Michael? And Jeremy also tips West Canberra here.
Yeah, I'm going for West Canberra Wanderers as well at home. I think it'll give them a lot of confidence that they were able to get the 3 points last week and a clean sheet as well. And I expect them to produce a similar result in terms of keeping a clean sheet again and, yeah, getting the 3 points.
Next up, Canberra Olympic, Belconnen United. This should be an absolute cracker. I'm looking forward to this one. Sunday, April 24th, 2:30 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. Like we said, maybe before the start of the season, everyone would have said, people might have said this would have been easy to pick. I don't think this is. I'm going to go with the Canberra Olympic victory, but I think this is going to be so close. Clearly, Scott Conlon has got this team going, but I think Olympic just have a little too much firepower at the moment, and Olympic have, kept the clean sheet as well, while Belconnen have let in a goal each. But this is going to be so close, and I think Belco will use this to use this game, whether they win or lose, to build on the new project that they've got going on there. But even if Belco do lose, it's no shame in losing to a team as stacked as Olympic. But this is going to be a close one. Jeremy also says Olympic for this one. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, me too. I'm going for Canberra Olympic. I think that given that they've had a whole lot of changes over the off season, they've managed to recruit so well with, obviously, Michaela Thornton being at the top of that list in terms of their recruitment. And they've looked really good to start the season. And that's not to completely discredit Belconnen United, because we know how good they are and how good of a team they've been in NPLW. But I think in terms of how both teams have started the season, you're going to lean towards Olympic more and what they've been able to produce so far. But this will be a big test for them. This is a game where we're going to really see what they're made of. This is the sort of game where you answer those questions of if you're a title contender or not. I know it's so early in the season, but when you come up against a side like Belconnen United that are fighting for the title every season, that's that's what's at stake essentially, and I think that they're going to come away with the 3 points.
Next up, Canberra United Academy versus Gungahlin United, Sunday, April 24th, 5:10 p.m. at Hawker Football Centre under the lights. I believe this is one Jeremy will be commentating on in terms of NPL TV in a fortnight's time. This is going to be another close one. Both teams yet to register their first victory or points, so they'll both be raring to go at the bit. So this is why I think it'll be an interesting game. At the end of the day, I think Gungahlin will have just a little too much firepower there. They've still got the Pennyfield, they've still got the DeMarcos. It's going to be interesting to see how they go, but I think this will be a close one. But I'm just choosing Gungahlin here, but I wouldn't be surprised with either result because both teams will be raring to try and get those first points on the board. How about you, Michael?
I'm going to go for a draw in this one, Matt. I think, like you said, both teams are... Sorry?
Change it up a bit.
Yeah, just to change it up a bit. We were sort of just heading down the same road. We were all picking the same team. So you got to throw a spanner in the works just to sort of, possibly get yourself that maybe point ahead in the tipping comp. So that's what I've decided to do. I do think that this game could play out as a draw, though. They might cancel each other out. I think Canberra United Academy will progressively get better as the season goes on. Obviously, they showed a lot more against West Canberra than they did against Canberra Croatia. And Gungahlin United are still looking to settle as well. So both teams are itching to sort of get their season kick-started, but I think it'll end in a draw. Now, moving on to CPL Round 2 review. We had Wagga City Wanderers pick up a 4-2 victory over Weston Molonglo, with Suleiman on the score sheet, Palingas with a double, and Ochang getting on the score sheet for the home team as well. And for Western Molonglo, we had Graham and Graham both get on the score sheet, not the same player though. So that's a bit of a confusing one. Both Grahams though getting on the score sheet for Western Molonglo. First win of the season, for Wagga in this instance, and putting 4 in the back of the net at home. You can't really ask much more for that. They would have loved that, Wagga City, and they did it the hard way though. Having to come from behind twice to beat the Magpies from Weston. All 3 of their scorers continued to be in fine form. Even Palongas with a brace. That's something that'll definitely please that team. This is the sort of the result that they'll use to sort of add and build on their momentum heading into the Riverina Derby next round in a fortnight's time. So, overall, it was a very good win for Wagga. Shows that they have it in them to sort of put a good performance together and get a convincing win at home. And in the instance that they were able to come back on more than one occasion to then end up putting themselves in front and getting the 3 points as well. It's obviously not a result Western would, have been hoping for, but they had moments in the match as well. It wasn't just one-way traffic. Like we did say, they did manage to get themselves ahead more than once in this match, but they just couldn't sustain that and carry that on to the final whistle. And, I'm sure that they'll try and look at the positives and take that away moving forward, maybe to keep it a little tighter at the back as well, instead of leaving themselves a little bit exposed. But I think you can expect a bit of a bounce back in the Woden Park Derby against their neighbours White Eagles in a fortnight's time. That you can be absolutely sure of that. But I think this is one of those games where there were positives to look at from both teams. Obviously, with Western Molonglo, they were able to get themselves in front on a couple of occasions in this match, but it was just them not being able to hang on to a lead, which in any competition is absolutely vital if you want to collect points and move up the table. So they will be disappointed, but it's no means the be all or end all. There's still a long way to go in this season. And for Wagga, it's a great result at home, scoring 4 goals. and a good performance to match as well that I'm sure the coaching staff there are very happy about. Matt, what do you sort of make of this result before we move on?
A good win for Wagga, and like they'll be disappointed they went down twice, but they did have the fight back in them, and they know that they aren't one of the favorites, so they're going to be, that realistically they will be conceding against some of the bigger teams this season, but to have that fight back and to push back, that's what I think is important for that Wagga side. You mentioned it was not all doom and gloom for Weston. They had their chances. They were in front twice. Don't forget they had a lot of changes this season to the team, so you have that to factor in. So there's still a bit of a blooding in period for them. So, but they'll look to those positives, I'm sure, and they always step up for the match against White Eagles, which we'll talk about soon. Next up, Brindabella against Canberra White Eagles. Ward with the goal for Brindabella. Zach Lawrence with the goal for White Eagles. From all accounts, it was a pretty tight contest at Corwell. The usual main pitch over at Ipen Park was unavailable, so they played at the Corwell playing field, literally right next to it, across the road. Both sides had their chances to take the game, from what I was told, but overall, it seems like from both accounts, a draw was probably the fair result, considering all that. The Brindis goal was a really well worked team goal. They broke quickly on the counter, put a ball over the top into the midfield, passed on to Curtis Schaefer, and Schaefer made that quick break down the left side, let off a shot, rebounded off the keeper, and it was put in by Ward. In terms of White Eagles' goals, another well-worked piece of play. The keeper lobbed it up to the midfield. Then they made a break from the midfield. Did a few 1-2s between some of the players, pulled Brindis wide, crossed it back in, and then Zach Lawrence completed the run, putting the ball in the bottom left corner. So by all accounts, pretty tight game, and it seems like the draw was a fair result there. Any thoughts on this one, Michael, before we move on?
Yeah, share of the spoils in this one. Obviously, I don't think either side are going to be too discouraged with taking a point each so early on in the season. It's not an absolute deal breaker that one of those teams came away with a loss. But it's good to hear that, that there was some good football being played in this match, particularly from a White Eagles standpoint, where they were able to put together a really nice move in order to score their goal. So some positive signs, and I think Brindis are going to do well this season. They'll do better than what they did last season, and I'm keen to sort of see the progression that they make going forward. But moving on now to a very, very big result. One that I certainly wasn't sure was going to happen, and I'm sure I can speak for you as well, Matt. But Queanbeyan City, outstanding result, 3-0, a huge win for Queanbeyan City. It's obviously still early days. We're only just sort of starting the season, and like we've sort of mentioned throughout the early parts of our shows, teams are still sort of finding their feet and whatnot. So, I mean, you can sort of take it at what you will, but I mean, for Queanbeyan City, this was a big step up for them in terms of finally getting over that hurdle. As ANU have always been such a hard and resilient team to play against, and it always seemed that against Queanbeyan City, they always managed to just pip them and just get themselves over the line to get the 3 points. And it was just a matter of us thinking and the league thinking, and I'm sure Queanbeyan City, the club and the supporters as well, when were they sort of going to get over that hurdle to really announce themselves in this competition? And they've managed to do it at such an early stage of the season with, Ferrer, Delahi and Mensah getting on the score sheet for Queanbeyan in this one. And, we did talk about it last week. If they did get the win, it would be such a huge mental barrier that they've overcome. And it's absolutely fantastic that they've managed to do that. And, Michael Mensah once again played centre back and scored the opener by getting on the end of a cross from a free kick. Faraji broke away and scored the second after a neat sort of dink over the keeper. We all know how sort of nice those finishes are. And Abdullahi was on the score sheet once again after finishing off a nice Queanbeyan City counterattack. So it's good to sort of see the variety in which Queanbeyan are scoring their goals, Matt, which is definitely a positive sign for Goran Josifovski to take away from this encounter. And when you look at the flip side of this, it's not the best day in the office for ANU. They came into this match, off a big win 4-0 over Yoogali last week. And, they just weren't able to replicate that performance, unfortunately, and perform to that standard that they had showed in round one. From their point of view, it's a result like this could be what they need early on to sort of tweak a few things. And, they're another team that have gone through a little bit of change to the playing group. There's a new coach, so you're still adapting to a new style of play and a new style of, coaching, essentially, as a whole. So I'm sure they'll look to sort of tweak things going forward. I'm sure this is going to teach ANU a lot going forward. And we know that they're a team very capable of always being able to come back and produce in the next match. So by no means does this have any, massive effect on ANU. We definitely know they'll be back stronger and better than ever. But I think from a Queanbeyan standpoint, this win might highlight how competitive the top half of the table and the race for promotion will be this season, because now that there's that incentive of being promoted into a higher league, these teams that are, classed in the top half of the competition all have their eyes on that one prize now. And you can just expect the games, and it happened last season where the games are just so tight and tightly contested that there's few and far between. Like, you can't make mistakes all too often because, even slightly one little ounce of a mistake, could cost you promotion. So there's a lot at stake, obviously, with being promoted to NPL. And, that's where I think we're going to get these sort of games like we have with Queanbeyan, and it's going to happen throughout the whole season. It's going to be very sort of topsy-turvy, a bit of a roller coaster, but there's just a lot at stake, and it makes for good, intense, fast football.
Yeah, and I think they'll also, like, teams like White Eagles and Tuggeranong and whatnot will, maybe not so much Tuggeranong because they weren't in the league last year, but in terms of White Eagles and the Brindies and whatnot, they might all look to this match and say, we can, it is possible to beat ANU when O'Connor and ANU were near unbeatable last season. Okay, next up, Tuggeranong 4-0 over Yoogali SC. Sam Walker with a goal in the 56th minute, Patrick Hislop 58th minute, Harrison Bunell 70th minute, and Luke Stevens gets his first goal in Tuggy's colours in the league. So very good way for Tuggeranong to kick off their CPL campaign. Of course, last week they didn't play due to an unplayable pitch over at Woden Park. All the goals came in the second half. It was another 4-0 loss in terms of Yoogali, but regarding Tuggeranong, though, it's just you couldn't really ask for a better start, could you, if you're Mitch Stevens and you're Tuggeranong? In terms of Yoogali, they did look threatening, though, when they had the possession. We all know their quality. Unfortunately for them, they weren't able to bury the chances that they had. They'll be hoping for better fortunes next week against Wagga in the Riverina Derby. Not next week, in Easter after it. You can imagine Yoogali going to be raring to go, though, after 4-2, after 4-0 defeats for their first match at home. And it's against Wagga, who, if I'm not mistaken, did beat them in the last Riverina Derby at the end of last season. So they're going to be raring to go. And I'm expecting a resurgent Yoogali performance. Not that they didn't have their moments in this game, but unfortunately for them, they weren't able to bury it. Michael, do you want to get straight into the picks for next week? We've got what I called the Woden Park Derby. Canberra White Eagles against Weston Molonglo, Saturday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. at Woden Park enclosed. I'm going to go with the White Eagles victory here, but Weston always step up to this match. And like we mentioned, probably it's going to take a little longer for Weston to get clicking, but we do know that they are able to take the lead and get some goals when they're the away side. So let's wait and see how this one turns out. I don't think it'll be I think it'll be a close match. I don't think it'll be varied by any stretch of the imagination. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game as well. This is a game that I'm actually going to go and watch in a fortnight's time. So I'm keen to go back to Warden Park, grab an Eagle burger and enjoy some football. So, and I think I'm going to do that with an Eagles victory in this one. I just see them having a little bit too much for Weston, but it will be close.
Next up, we have Queanbeyan and Tuggeranong. This should be a very, very interesting one here. Saturday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. at High Street. Third match in a row at home, I believe, for Queanbeyan. Tuggeranong United, we mentioned, coming off a very good win. Queanbeyan also coming off a very good win. I think these are two sides that will be pushing for that top spot and promotion. Still early days, so this result might not be the end-all, be-all, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. Tuggeranong have looked good in the cup as well. I know they haven't played a league game besides last week. Queanbeyan City, very, very good. I'm going to go for Queanbeyan City victory based on last week's result. I think that momentum will go very high for them, but the margin is going to be that thin. This one might be the result of this one might just go down to what errors are made. So I'm going to say a Queanbeyan victory here, but this one could really swing anyway. How about you, Michael?
I'm going to go for a draw. I think you've got to pay sort of attention to the fact that Tuggeranong are the team that have, had that NPL experience. And even though they've been relegated to this division, they're still a team that have plenty of experience and bodies in there that have played at the top level. And I know that this is a great sort of result for Queanbeyan City to come into, obviously beating a great team like ANU. But at the end of the day, they're now coming up against former NPL opposition. So we'll get to really see what they're made of at that capacity. And I think it'll just be, few and far between these two teams. I don't think a whole lot will separate them, but, I could easily be wrong. You just never know with football. So I'm going to go for a stalemate.
And I'll bring it up soon, but we are sometimes wrong in these tips, all for good fun. ANU against Brindabella Blues, Saturday, April 23rd, 3:15 p.m. at ANU South Oval or the Willows. This is actually tougher than I thought. After ANU's loss last week, we all know the Brindis are improving. Considering ANU's loss, I think ANU will just tip this one, but this is going to be very tight. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw either, or the Brindis can sneak one here. We all know how much they've improved. ANU, though, I think they'll just be that point to prove after not just losing, but losing 3-0 last week when they were considered the favourites heading into that matchup. So I think they'll have a point to prove. It's going to be a very close one, but I'm going to say ANU. How about you, Michael?
I'm going to go for ANU as well. I just expect them to have that retaliation following the loss to Queanbeyan City.
Yeah.
And, they're a side that have always come back stronger after a minor setback. So I expect them to do that against Brindis. But like you said, Brindis are, they're showing a lot of potential in the matches that they've had so far. And I like what they're doing over there. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to even snatch a point in this one, but it'll all just depend on how ANU and how fired up they are after that Queanbeyan loss.
Next up, we've got Yoogali SC against Wagga City Wanderers, the Riverina Derby, Sunday, April 24th, 1:30 p.m. at Solomat Stadium. Yoogali's long way to return to their home ground at Solomat Stadium. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it'll be quite close. I think Yoogali, like we mentioned with ANU, they'll have a point to prove after losing 2 matches there, and they're usually very, very strong at home. I think this will be closer than what people think, but I am going to go for a Yoogali victory here. But Wagga, let's not forget, did beat Yoogali last time they played, so it's going to be an interesting matchup, which I believe you can still see these matches in terms of Yoogali home matches live on their Facebook page.
Yeah.
What are you going to say for this one, Michael?
I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to go for a Wagga City Wanderers win, to back off their win against Yoogali the last time that they played. I think it'll be, like any derby, fierce and competitive, but I'm going to go for a Wagga City Wanderers win.
And that's us for CPL finished this week. Michael, it's been a very good show. Had Russ on for NPL 1. Had a lot to discuss. Probably made a fool of ourselves doing predictions, but that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? Especially for NPL one, where it's even more difficult than ever. And yeah, it's been a hell of a show. What did you take away from it? And just before I forget, no show next week because it's Easter, so we'll see you in a fortnight's time. But Michael, any last words?
No, I think we're going to have a little break now, obviously, with Easter around the corner, which will be good in terms of, just having a bit of time to reset and relax and come back refreshed in a fortnight's time when, there's going to be a whole lot of football being played. And I think that there are so many good games on for NPL in round 3 when Easter is done and we return to football in a fortnight's time. And like we did in the predictions, it was just all 4 games were absolute quality. Like they're going to be absolute quality, hard to pick. And it was reflected when we were trying to choose a winner, because it really shows the quality of round 3 for NPL. But, there's still some very good games going on across NPLW and CPL as well.
It certainly is. Should be a cracking fortnight once that happens in a fortnight's time. We're looking forward to it. That was episode 48 of the Canberra Football Show, our round to review. Thank you very much, everybody.